Well, hello everybody and welcome back. Can you believe it's the final session of the day already? It's gone so fast, hasn't it? How were your breakout sessions? Yes? Excellent. Who did the Lego? Yeah, I heard amazing things about the Lego. Yes, I'm looking forward to hearing more about that. But let me introduce you to our final speaker of the day, Rebecca Manda. She's the founder of Guru U Coaching. She specialises in coaching leaders through professional and personal setbacks. Her motivation to set up Guru U came from a horrendous time in her life where she lost both her little boy Charlie suddenly, and a year later she also lost her mum. She realised just how many people really needed to continue to look the part when actually inside they were falling apart. And so she is always inspiring. I love listening to Rebecca speak. And today she's here to talk about how you bounce forward. That's her incredible programme that helps you to move out of your comfort zone into the career you deserve. So can we please welcome Rebecca Manda.
Hi. Gosh, these lights are bright. Wow, I need my sunglasses. How are you all? Good, good. Okay, is this going to move? Okay. Come on. I practiced it earlier and it was fine. Oh, now I've got too many. Well, welcome, and thank you so much, Lucy, for that brilliant introduction. As Nick said, we could carry you around and just it makes us feel so good when you introduce us. So, hands up if you've been inspired today. Wow. Hands up if your brain has grown and you've learnt something. Wow, our brain actually does grow. That's amazing, isn't it? So, hands up if you made a great choice in coming today. Brilliant. I think that's 100%, Dan. I hope you got a photo of that. Absolutely. Great choices are very, very important. And that's what I'm here to talk about today. The choices that we make in our lives, like the one that you made to come today, that impact us greatly. And before I share my tools and techniques and the birth of the Bounce Forward programme, I'm going to introduce you to myself. Who am I? You might think, who is that woman with the big hair? Did she actually meet a bush on the way here? My nickname at school was Becky Bush, actually. For this, okay. Okay, let's move on swiftly. To introduce my team, I have some wonderful coaches that work with me. These two are very special, and this is my beautiful daughter, Ruby, who's 16. She's just done her business exam, and she thinks she smashed it. Touch wood, thank you, that's good. And she's 16 years old. And then I've got my beautiful PA, Alison, who's here today and is loving the fact that her picture is on the large screen. So please take a photograph of that and share it on LinkedIn. But, you know, our story is what got us that programme. Our story is what made our programme happen. How we learnt about the choices that we make. How we bounce forward through setback. And how we're celebrating here in this picture because we won 2 awards this year, and this is the first one we won for the Birmingham Chamber, Excellence in Education. And we had a huge competition. And we won this award on what would have been Charlie's 18th birthday. How amazing is that? Thank you. Thank you so much. And so his legacy is what's brought me here today, and that's why we're celebrating. And it was all about moving through setback. But one of my clients, Wesleyan, who are also here today, they said, actually, we want a programme for our people who have amazing skill set, but their mindset is holding them back. And so we took exactly what we'd created for Bounce Forward and just put it into a career programme. And we've been doing that for the last 4 years. So we're really excited. And I'm going to be sharing that story with you today. Thank you so much for listening. I believe And I think you will agree, based on your experiences that you've had in your life, that we always, always have a choice. No matter what happens, even if the worst thing happens, we have a choice. Sometimes it might not feel like we have a choice. We didn't choose to be made redundant. We didn't choose to lose a loved one. We didn't choose to get that health diagnosis that we didn't want. We didn't choose that. And you may be sat here in a situation, we all have them as well. Life goes on, really, really tough things happen that we just don't choose. But we can be able to respond to those things, responsible for the way we move forward through those challenges. And I know that the speakers have been sharing some of their stories of resilience and how we've done that. And we saw that today on the panel as well. So our choices are what make us who we are. And I forgot to put in a slide, so please just WhatsApp me if you want to know the details. But there's 2 books that really demonstrate this beautifully. One is The Choice by Edith Eger, a Holocaust survivor. Beautiful, beautiful book. It's not as depressing as it sounds. It's a lovely book. The other one is by Sheryl Sandberg. She was the COO of Meta at Facebook. And she lost her husband while he was running one day unexpectedly. And so she wrote a book called Option B. And both of those books, as I was reading them, I was like, yes, this is what I've been saying. And I haven't got a book out, so I'm just telling you about their books. Okay. So some other, we always have a choice. It might not feel like it, but we do have a choice. And I'm going to be sharing that today and, what we're going to be looking at. So some examples that I have for you. The first is Bethany Hamilton. Beautiful, beautiful lady. When she was 13 years old, she was surfing. She loved surfing. She had a real passion for surfing and was caught in an almost deadly shark attack when she lost the use of her arm. She had her arm amputated. Can you imagine what a 13-year-old girl thinks when she wakes up from an operation to be told you've lost your arm? The next person is Charlie Fogarty. Do any of you know Charlie? So Charlie Fogarty is a superhero in Solihull, and he campaigns so much for Solihull Moors Football Club. He campaigns for young people in football and sport, especially those with disabilities. When he was 16, he was crossing the road on the way to the cinema after his GCSEs. He had just completed 4 years of his contract with Birmingham City Football Club. He was a hopeful and trialling for other large Premiership clubs, and he was hit by an overtaking car. He had a brain injury and was in rehabilitation for a year. He went from having his 16-year-old brain in maths and English to the brain of a year 1 student, that's 6 or 7 years old. And then this lovely man, Tia Blundell, I'll put his links up, both Charlie and Tia's links up there. These are both more close to home. Tia has just been interviewed on Radio 4. I shared it on LinkedIn because it was so inspirational that if you want to look on my LinkedIn profile, you'll find the actual interview. But Tia was born into, he was mixed race. He was born to a Pakistani father and a white mother. His father rejected him at birth because he was born out of wedlock and he was white. And his mother's string of boyfriends abused him because he was brown. He was in primary school, and the only thing he knew how to do properly was to fight and stand up for himself. He actually says in his interview he felt that he'd been cursed. Can you imagine a primary school student thinking that? He was expelled at the age of 11 and sent to a pupil referral unit. And he left that pupil referral unit with no qualifications at all at the age of 16. So if we think about what must have been going through these examples, their minds, what was going through their minds? I'm drawn to The Circle of Influence by Stephen Covey. He's the author of The 7 Habits of highly successful people. And it's a great big book. It's huge, but it's good. And one of his habits is to think about our circle of influence. So if we think of a concern that any of our examples might have had, I'm never going to surf again, I'm never going to play football again, I've got no education, no one wants me, I've been rejected by my family, how on earth could I possibly have a career? I've got no self-worth. They could have been saying things like, honestly, it's dreadful, the traffic these days. They weren't taking care, dangerous drivers. Bethany could have been saying, why don't they look out for sharks better? The shark surveillance is not good enough. And Tia could have said, well, the education system's shot, and so I've got no chance. In that case, they would have had a small amount of influence. They would have been in the victim space. And we can be in that victim space sometimes. There's just no career development opportunities for me. There's no training for me. I've got too much work. They give me just everything. No one cares. No one listens to me in meetings. They don't give me the responsibility I think I could have, I could handle. Do you notice the language? It's all about the they. And in order for us to feel good in our centre of power, we need someone to come along and say, without us saying anything to them, we need someone to come along and say, oh, I've noticed you've been sidelined so much. That's dreadful. I'm going to make sure that doesn't happen again. Without you saying anything, that would happen. Well, we all know that we could be waiting a very long time for that to happen. But if it did, we'd feel really good about ourselves. Oh, yeah, thank you. I have. Thank you. I'm glad you noticed. That doesn't happen. So we could be waiting a very long time. What my examples did was think about, what can I control? Who do I know that can help me walk again? My brain is the age of a year 6 student. What do I need to do to grow it? Can I get one-to-one support from Solihull School? That's what Charlie did. Bethany got on her surfboard a month later, and she went on to win the Women's Championships of Surfing in 2 years later. Charlie went on to become an MBE. He got his degree in sports science. And Tia was 26, and he was a bouncer. And he thought, I want to be on the other side of that rope. So he went and borrowed someone's suit and sat in a college and asked for an access to education programme. And someone believed in him and someone gave him that without any qualifications. And he went to Warwick University and he graduated with first-class degree honours. And then he went to St Andrews and he got a master's. And then he went and got a PhD at Oxford University. How amazing is that? Because what he did, and now he's helping all those, amazing charities. He's set up a group called Band of Brothers supporting other young men. Phenomenal man. They all our examples had a moment where they thought, what can I do? So we do the same. We can do the same. Who do I need to speak to that's going to help me advance my career? Who do I look at and think, oh, I like what they're doing in their space, so I'm going to ask them for coffee and sit down with them? What research do I need to do in order to help me, bounce forward in my career? What haven't I tried? Where could I be braver? What advice would I give my younger self? What word keeps coming up time and time again in those phrases? Anyone? The tiniest words, I. It's about accountability, and now we are in our circle of influence. Now we are the victor. We are controlling our own destiny. And for any of you who work with people who can often be in the victim space, the best question to ask them to help them out of that is, what can you do about it? And if they say, I don't know, nothing, imagine you did know. What would you do? Imagine you had all the confidence in the world. What would you do next? So those are some examples of choices that amazing people have made. And I wanted to share those stories because I'm not the only example of somebody who made a choice, but I'm going to share my story with you now. I'm just going to have a sip of water. Thank you. Right, big gulp. Okay. So here I am. I was managing director at the time of this photograph, and before that, I was a sales director. Now, my mum, who was our CEO, had poached me from a beautiful job I had at British Airways. And someone talked earlier with Lucy about, I think someone said, think about someone who told you couldn't do it. Do you remember? I think was it Nick's talk? A time when someone told you, well, this bloke said to me, I don't know why you're going for that job in London. I was on check-in at British Airways. I loved it. He said, I don't know why you're going for that job. You'll never get it. It's 3 grades higher. I thought, oh, well, it's practice. So I'll go. And I got it. So that was my person. Anyway, I was working at British Airways. I loved it. Living the high life. I'd just come back from Mauritius for £99 in business class. And my mum said, would I like to go and work for her? Now, my mum owned a manufacturing company that sold doorbells. Ding dong, Mum. I don't think so. And she said, oh, come on, it'd be brilliant. Now, she was a very, very heart-led leader. She was a brilliant leader. She cared about people before profit, and the profit followed. She was brilliant. And I thought, I'm going to learn a lot from her, actually, and the leaders I was seeing at British Airways weren't outstanding for me. So I thought, actually, I'm going to learn a lot. And so I let her win me over. And there I was, I'd swapped beautiful waterside with, I don't know if any of you have been there, but there's a river running through reception. It's that stunning. There's, live trees. It's beautiful. For Wharfside, which was a little office well, not little, but an office in Smethwick on the Cut, very different. I swapped my trips from Mauritius to driving up and down the M6 in my Renault Laguna, selling doorbells, and I'd go in with my little samples bag, and I'd go into wholesalers, and it's like they'd never seen a woman before in their lives. And I'd go in and go, hi, do you want to buy a doorbell? And they'd say, no, love, but you got any knockers? So that was my life as a sales manager selling doorbells. We did have some nice knockers, actually. Anyway, I was a sales director. I made my way through the company and became sales director. My story begins at this time. My mum had sold the business to the company that you see there, Smartwares. And we, at the time, had 2 children. We had Joshua, who was 4, and Charlie, who was 1. And there was Craig, my husband, who also worked in the business. My brother, my mum. It was a family business originally, so there were a lot of family there. And one night, we'd had a particularly bad day, so we thought, let's just go out for a curry. Let's just go and chill. So we went out for a curry, and when we came home, Charlie was awake, and that was unusual because, he normally slept through. But he wasn't very well. We'd been to the doctors. He'd got a cold. They said, put him down to bed with Calpol. No problem. And we put him to bed. I gave him his bottle, and when I came back to check on him an hour later, he was not okay. He was face down in his cot. And I grabbed him and raced into our bedroom, thinking Craig would tell me, because I'm quite dramatic, that I was dramatic, being, you're overreacting. He didn't. We couldn't remember the number to dial for the emergency services. We were like in shock. Anyway, it very quickly came back to us, thank goodness. The ambulance came straight away. We lived near Warwick Hospital. They came straight away. They shot up the stairs, grabbed Charlie, put him in the ambulance. Craig's following in the car, ringing my parents in France to say, you need to come quickly. We think Charlie might be dying. And we got to the hospital, and I was on my knees in that hospital. I didn't care what anyone thought. And I asked to see the priest, and I really believed that the next day there would be an article in the newspaper saying, baby saved by mother's faith. I honestly believed that. And sadly, a miracle didn't happen. And on the 31st of March 2007, we lost our beautiful boy, Charlie. to pneumococcal septicemia, a very unusual strain of a pneumococcal disease. So why am I telling you this really sad story at the end of a day when you should be celebrating? Because in that moment, maybe not in the moment, I certainly wasn't compos mentis enough to say, sounds like you've got a decision to make, Rebecca. Are you going to be the victim or the victor here? No, that didn't happen like that. But there were many things I knew I needed. I knew what I didn't want. My first thought was, oh my God, you're never going to laugh again. You're never going to smile again. Your life is over. You certainly won't be doing any Tina Turner impressions. They're very good. After a gin and tonic, Alison will tell you that. And I just thought, and then I remembered 2 women I knew who'd also lost children. Now, if any of you have gone through anything like this, I do apologise because I won't be able to do justice to your story today. There are no words. These 2 women were like walking, talking shells. There was no smile, a sparkle behind their smile, no soul behind their eyes. They were just surviving, going from day to day. And I just thought, oh my God, that's it. That's what I've got now. And Joshua, I imagined him being a 14-year-old boy telling somebody his life was never the same again until the day his brother died. After the day his brother died. It had been perfect up until that point. I went on to find that 90% of marriages suffer after the loss of a child. So I knew there was so much that we had to overcome, and I hadn't got a clue how I was going to do it. But I knew I had to do something. And it was as if someone said to me, Rebecca, there's a huge mountain, and here's a pair of flip-flops. Off you go. I had no idea. Now, my brother calls me his bossy big sister. I call myself the queen of delegation. And so what I did was think, right, who can help me? Who's going to help me here? And so I spoke to the police. The police had turned up in their droves on the night Charlie died, making us feel really culpable. It wasn't pleasant. So I went to speak to the chief of police at Leamington, and I'm confident that that won't happen again to another family. I then spoke to the pathologist. If you remember, I'd put Charlie down with his bottle, and I thought, oh my God, what if I had one job and I gave him his bottle? What if he choked on that bottle? And I knew that in 10 years' time, when I was thinking about this, or beating myself up, or my marriage had fallen apart because I felt guilty and Craig blamed me or something, you just never know what could happen. 10 years later, the pathologist might not even be alive. And so I thought, right now, he or she have just done this autopsy, and I'm sure they will want to help the poor family behind it. And so I asked to speak to the pathologist. And an hour later, and a list of A4 questions later, I knew I'd had nothing. Nothing could have been done. It was simple, septicemia. There was nothing that could have been done. It was a huge relief. And the other thing I thought was my mind. My mind was all over the place. Of course my mind wasn't right. And I needed help with that because I had a friend who said to me, Rebecca, you'll learn to live with the pain. I was thinking, you have no idea how much pain I'm in because that is sending me into a lifetime of misery. And so I asked for I wasn't offered any help. I'm sure they might have given it me later on down the line when they saw me rocking backwards and forwards, I'm not sure. But I asked for help. I said, I need to speak to a psychologist, and I'd like this psychologist. They said, oh, she doesn't support children who are old, parents of children who are older than someone was just coming in, older than 1 year. And I said, no, please ask. Will you just ask? And they did. And she said yes. And I had 2 years on the NHS of support helping me grow and helping Craig. It was just phenomenal, the support I got. And we went on to have a beautiful baby girl, Ruby. So we were doing really well. And a year later, we were celebrating Ruby's birth, and we had another tragedy, which I'm not going to go into now, but it meant that we lost our CEO, my mum. And the parent company who'd bought us said to me, Rebecca, we'd like you to be managing director. I said, are you joking? I'm grieving my mum, I'm grieving my son, I just want to be at home. And I've never been a managing director before, and half of them are family. Can you imagine me? My husband's Australian. Can you imagine telling an Australian bloke what to do? Shut up, Sheila. I was just like, no way, I'm a brother. He calls me his bossy big sister. What's that going to be like? Anyway, I knew I had a choice. And I thought about, what about the people in the company? As I said, we were a heart-led, compassionate leadership team. And they had just gone through a huge tragedy, losing their CEO, who they adored. And we were just entering into the economic crisis of 2008. We were about to lose our biggest customer, B&Q. How could I leave them? And so I spoke to everybody. Again, I gathered the troops. Who could I delegate to? Who could I speak to? The guy down the road who had a brilliant engineering company. I had no experience. My mum was going to be my mentor, and she wasn't there. I had no experience, but I knew I had a choice. And so I put the same things in place. We had to make 33% redundancies because of the economic crisis. We lost B&Q. And in my first meeting, I was telling the shareholders, you know that company you bought for millions a few years ago? We just made a minus £146,000 loss. Not a great meeting. I wanted to cry in that meeting. But I gathered the troops. Amazing heart-led leadership means you have a great team of people behind you. And we built the company back up. And by the time I left in 2014, we were turning over £14 million. That's a lot of doorbells. So what would I do? I learned about coaching, and I thought, yeah, people were saying, how did you do it? How did you keep going? And I found that so rewarding. I remember speaking to psychologists now. Years later, I was helping train psychologists on what it's like to be a parent in that situation. And I found that so rewarding that I retrained and supported senior leaders through personal setback. And I was asked to do a keynote, my first keynote. And I thought, well, everyone has a story. What am I going to do with my story? I don't just want to give a story. I want to give people something to take away. And so we created Charlie's Star. Now, I wanted to call it the 5-point coaching model because I thought it sounded really corporate. But someone said to me, no, call it Charlie's Star. Why don't you call it Charlie's Star? And that was such a perfect name because outside my bedroom window, every night, actually, it was Charlie's bedroom window. Every night there was this humongous star. And I'd say, that's Charlie. And I remember, I don't know why I'm telling you this story, but I remember telling my aunt, oh, there's this star. She said, oh, that'll be the North Star. I felt like saying, piss off, it's Charlie's Star. So Charlie's Star really resonated with me. And so we built this little star, which does very big things, and it wins awards even. And it helped people. How can I bounce forward through setback? I wanted to help people get from the victim space, which we all fall into. We deserve to watch Netflix and drink a bottle of wine if we want to when we're in the victim space. But there's only so long that we can do that. When we're in the victim space, what I learnt was that I was coaching children at primary school who were 8 and CEOs. I've coached from all across the spectrum. And the one thing I've noticed that they all have in common is that when they're in the victim space, they're stuck. But when they're in the victor space, they fly. And when we're in the victim space, it's quite intoxicating because everyone feels sorry for us. We get shepherd's pie delivered to the door or a bunch of flowers. And people feel sorry for us. And also we can do things that are wrong and we'll get away with it because, oh, she's going through a tough time. It's not good. And, but we don't go anywhere. We don't move. We stay. And it is intoxicating and it is addictive and it's hard because when you're in the victor space, sometimes everyone thinks you're flying. They think you're fine. And so they leave you alone. But being in the victor space means coming out of our comfort zone. And so I thought, how can I help people do this? How can I help people bounce forward through setback? And so I created Charlie's Star, which I'm going to share with you now. So I'd like you to think for a moment about a situation. You've had a brilliant day today. You all put your hand up and said it was a great choice. So there must be, for each one of you, an area where you feel you could push yourself a little bit outside of your comfort zone. As Amy said, nothing great happens inside the comfort zone. I love those words, Amy. So think about where you could come out of your comfort zone and how that would help your career. Maybe you've got to have a difficult decision coming up. A difficult decision, yeah, we can do that. You have a difficult decision to make. Or maybe you've got a challenge ahead of you. Whatever the example is, just think about what it is, and we'll go through Charlie's Star together. And at the end, I'm going to give you an email address, and I'll be able to send all of this stuff to you, so don't worry. So you've got your thing in your head, right? The first thing I want you to think about is your admirer. This is someone who absolutely thinks you're the bee's knees. They look up to you. They think you're absolutely rocking the space that you're in. Now, they don't need to work with you. They could be a member of your team or your boss, but they could be your mum, who sees what you're doing and brags about you to everybody she knows. And so what would they say? What would your admirer say if they knew the thought that you've got in your mind now? What strengths do they see in you? Just think about that. What strengths do they see in you? What words of encouragement would they give you? The next part is the inspirer. And this is someone who really inspires you. Someone you look up to and think, actually, you're a few steps ahead. I want a bit of what you're doing. And you can be sure that the inspirer is not operating within your comfort zone. So they're a great person to have. The inspirer, what would they do if they were in your shoes right now? What would they do? The next is the firer. This is the Lord Sugar, the worst that can happen. What's the worst that can happen if you come out of your comfort zone? What's the worst that can happen? And what's the likelihood of that thing happening? What's the worst if you're making a decision? What's the worst if you go with one decision? And the worst that can happen if you go with the other? And what's the worst that can happen if you don't do anything at all? So for me, the worst that could happen if I took on the role of managing director, for example, would have meant I'd crash and burn. I'd be rubbish. But at least I knew I'd give it a go. The worst that could happen if I didn't take it would be that someone else would do it and do a really bad job, and that would have been awful. Then you've got the hirer, the best that can happen. What's the best thing that could happen for you if you come out of your comfort zone? And for me, it was having a family together, a family of 4, a legacy for Charlie, being able to speak at events like this because of what I'd learnt. Or it was having a company that would make £14 million in doorbells. That was my best that could happen. And I didn't know it was going to happen at the time. But when you visualize it, you're almost halfway there, like Mo Farah we heard about earlier. And then this is my most exciting bit, I think, the inquirer. Do you remember I had the inquirer? So it was the guy down the road who was the mentor. Then there was also the psychologist, the pathologist. They were my inquirer. Who or what do you need to know in order to help you bounce forward? As you go through Charlie's Star, there'll be things that you push aside, like, nah, I can't do that, I haven't got a babysitter. Or I can't do that, I just don't, my company won't let me do that. And actually, the inquirer might be one of those people you need to talk to check that out. To check that out. I was speaking to someone today, I'm not going to name her because it might embarrass her, but she was saying, someone had said, oh, you can't go and ask him if you can be his PA. He's far too busy. She'd just done the Bounce Forward programme. So she thought, well, I'm going to try. She knocked on his door. 6 months later, she was his PA. And she hadn't got PA experience. So really, it is about who we speak to that really makes a difference. And sometimes you think, what if I annoy that person? I don't want to bother them. They're really busy. Well, flip that on its head. If someone came to you and said to you, I love what you're doing in your space. Could we have a coffee? I'd really love to pick your brains. How would you feel? Amazing, flattered, right? That's how they feel when you ask them. They want to roll the ladder down and make it a wide ladder. There's no one that's been successful that doesn't want to give everyone a piece of what they learned. We talked about mentoring and coaching today. If you don't have a mentor, please, between now and the next month, make sure you get one. They're the best thing in the world. I have loads, mentors for different, mentors coming out my ears. And I couldn't be without them. So who do you need to speak to? What research do you need to do? And the final part, wow, that looks good. Didn't check that slide, did I? That's why I have Alison. She's the organised one. I'm really not organised. So yeah, and Alison didn't get the slides, so she would have sorted that out, wouldn't you? So what action do I need to do? Now, I'm not saying this means, I'm going to apply for CEO tomorrow. It's what small action can you do to help you bounce forward? It might be ring that person up and ask them if I can have a coffee. It might be read that book, get that book that was suggested to me. It might be a multitude of things. So what's the action that you're going to do? What's the small thing that you're going to do to make a difference to help you bounce forward after today? Hopefully you've got something in mind. Has anybody had any revelations while they were doing that? Anyone want to share? I know how you all love to share. I saw it earlier. Okay, no worries. Right, have I got time? I have got time. I can see my. Would you like one more story? Okay. Oh no! Before we do the story, this was my best that could happen. So this is my set. We're all in Sorrento, as it says there, and we've got Ruby there. She's 16. And she's an absolute pleasure. I don't know if any of you were in Nick's session, but no one volunteered because you're all rubbish because you don't volunteer. Joking. And so I did because I felt for Nick. So I volunteered and he said, what makes you happy? And I talked about Ruby and she's constantly looks like that. She's smiling. She doesn't always have that lopsided head. That would be a bit uncomfortable. And then there's Josh, he's 21, and he never was the boy that had to go to the counsellor to say his life was never the same again. He is a very happy young man with a beautiful girlfriend. And this is my husband, Craig, long-suffering and part of the Guru team as well. So, he'll be delighted that he's on the big screen as well today. So my story, I'm going to leave you with this story. There was a colony of water bugs, and they lived in the bottom of a riverbed. And it was such a cosy riverbed. They loved it. It was warm, it was cozy, it was brown, it was murky. And every now and then, a can of Coke would float down and they'd have a party. Woo! And every now and then also, one of the bugs used to leave. They'd go up the stem and not come back. And everyone was perplexed. Why would anyone leave this amazing riverbed? So they made a pact that the next person the next bug to go up the stem would come back and tell everybody what was so good about being up there that no one comes back. And this bug decided that she was going to climb the stem. So she started climbing. And she felt very nervous because it was very high. And everyone's going, go, Buck, you can do this. And she's like, I'm not sure I can, this is really high. And she carried on and she carried on. I'm going to get there, I'm going to get there. And she climbed and she climbed and she climbed. And by the time she'd finished, she was so exhausted that she fell asleep on the lily pad. And a couple of days later, she woke up. And she could not believe her eyes. She could see bees, birds, butterflies, blue skies, and the brown water that she'd come from was blue. And there were these sparkly bits on top of the water that came from this big yellow ball in the sky. Oh my, she said, this is amazing. And she started to just look around and she could see things that looked a bit like her. And they're like, yeah, you made it. And she looked to her left and she had the most beautiful silvery lacy wing. And then she looked to her right and she had the same. And when she moved those wings, she could fly. Oh, wow, she was doing loop-the-loop. She couldn't believe it. And then she remembered her promise and she thought, oh my goodness, I've got to go and tell everyone so everyone comes up. It's brilliant. So she flew down to the water surface and she couldn't go down because she got her beautiful wings. But she was really sad. And so she sat on the lily pad and she reflected and she thought, I can't go back. Even if I wanted to, I can't go back. And that's like us. Yeah, for sure, I'd love that job at British Airways, checking people in. But it paid £8,000 a year. And I can't go back. If I had gone back, I wouldn't have learnt what I've learnt and I wouldn't be in front of you all today. The second realization was that if I continue to fly, I will inspire others by the life I lead, and they'll come and join me. But not everyone will want to join me. And that's the same for us. Some people might say we're too big for our boots. Are we going to listen to just one person? People might not recognize us as we grow and as we go through this metamorphosis of amazingness. And they might look at us and think, But is that going to stop us? And we will inspire people by the lives we lead. And the final realization was that if I had stayed in the comfort of my riverbed, I wouldn't know what it was like to be a dragonfly. And that's the same for us. Don't stay in the riverbed. Find your wings, if you haven't got them already, and fly. I'd like to leave you with a goodie bag. The goodie bag, inside it, is going to help you be a dragonfly. It's your a confidence kit, 3 tips, tools and techniques to help build confidence in your career and get the career you want. When you scan the code, you'll also get, when you start getting that, you'll get an email from me. And if you'd like Charlie Starr sending to you, please do. Just send me a reminder and I'll send it to you, no problem, or Alison will. And then also, we have a private Bounce Forward group in Facebook, which I've set up just for you all. And for people who have been on the Bounce Forward programme with the PA Forum, I forgot to mention that. We've been doing that all year in 2024. And we're doing it into 2025. So if you've not been on it already and you'd like to be on it, that's absolutely your right as a member. And Dan will help you with that. And it's a private group. We're really supportive on the Facebook group. So please feel free to join me there so I can really give you those tools and techniques to help you bounce forward. And finally, as all the speakers have said today, I was way out of my comfort zone. This is the biggest stage I've been on, so that's really exciting. And I came out of my comfort zone today, and I hope it was worth it. Thank you all very much for listening, and thank you for inspiring me. Thank you.
So inspiring. I hope you would agree with me. Thank you, Rebecca. Really, really wonderful. So there have been a few common themes today. I think that really we should just revisit very briefly. The first is getting brave or courageous. and stepping outside of your comfort zone and taking control of your future. Are you going to remain in a victim space, or are you going to move into a victor space? Then we talked a lot this morning about the power of networking. Isn't it wonderful to be back in person and being with each other, as opposed to seeing each other just over a screen? You know, this whole connection piece is so fantastic, and it's been so wonderful to meet so many of you over the last couple of days. I've really enjoyed myself, and I hope you've enjoyed yourselves too. So who is going to leave here and go and try out some things on AI? Yes? Excellent. Great. Are you less fearful? Yes, me too. Okay, who is going to put themselves forward to go and speak at a meeting or make a presentation? Oh, a few. That's not bad. That's not bad. That's okay. Who is going to go back and have a talk about career pathways, whether that is for your entire group or whether that's just for you? All right. What about starting conversations about how your assistants might be structured? Fantastic. And what about thinking about training and development needs for the assistants at your organisations? This is so wonderful. It makes my heart sing, I can't tell you. You know, as I said earlier this morning, outside of your comfort zone is really where the magic happens. Are you ready to step into your potential? Because you know what? We can stand here every year and talk to you and give you our souls and try and make you step out of your comfort zone and go and do the thing. But at the end of the day, it's down to you to be the change. We can't do it for you. You have to go and do it. So I am going to leave you with my very favourite quote in the world, which says that 20 years from now, you are going to be far more disappointed by the things that you didn't do than by the things that you did do. So, throw off the bowlines, sail away from the safe harbour, catch the trade wind in your sails, explore, dream, and discover. Thank you all very much. Welcome back, Daniel.
Can we just give a massive round of applause to Lucy and to Rebecca for closing today for us. Honestly, there's so many of you here today. It just literally could not be possible for us to be able to deliver all this without the amazing support of our partners, our speakers, amazing panels that we've had on today, our treasured committee members. I am so grateful to absolutely everyone who's poured every bit into this day to make it hopefully one that you can remember and hopefully one that we can build together on year after year after year. So I am so grateful. So I would like to just say to Lucy, thank you for coming back. Thank you for coming back to Birmingham and joining us. I know you were at the PA Hub a couple of weeks ago, weren't you? And still travelling around. Hope you get some rest soon. I also want to say a huge thank you to our amazing team that looked after the Midlands VA conference. We had 40 VAs or budding VAs or experienced VAs in that theatre today, and it was so lovely to hear the conversations over the table, the panellists that were sharing, the speakers that were sharing. It was brilliant. So I'm so grateful to everybody for making that work. And to all of the speakers that have joined us on stage here today, our panellists who pushed themselves out of their comfort zone, everyone who's been in our breakout sessions, it really does mean the world to us. So thank you. I'd like to say a massive thank you to Millennium Point. I hope you all agree this is just a phenomenal venue for this type of conference. It's fantastic. I've had the pleasure of working with Millennium Point for many years, and a big, massive round of applause to our AV team as well that have looked after us today. We really appreciate it. Thank you. Please do. We will send out a feedback form on Monday just to get your thoughts and feelings, and we would love to share those comments with our speakers and also with the venues, etc. And we'll try and send out the follow-ups and the slides and all those different things that we'll liaise with the speakers about, and we'll get that out to you next week. And finally, I just want to say massive thank you to Fiona, Rhiannon, Maria, Alison, Katie, Helen and Mel for really helping push pull this day together and for being on hand to help and support you at every step of the way. So I'm very, very grateful to you all, and can we have a massive round of applause for them, please? So, we're going to have a little glass of fizz or something soft, whatever takes your fancy, downstairs. If you can join us, we'd love you to. We're going to announce our prize winners from the stands today and also our grand prize draw. But thank you for coming and taking a day out to come and spend it on you, your own personal and professional development. And thank you for being a really valuable part of our community. We really appreciate it. Thank you.